Hi everyone and welcome back to Stitchy Bee. I'm Cheryl Temple. Well, it's been a busy few weeks, this last 3 or 4 weeks I think, since I last saw you. As you probably know, I launched my online fabric shop about a month ago, stitchybee.co.uk, and it's been crazy busy. You've been keeping me well out of mischief, so thank you very much if you have ordered and supported me. I really appreciate it, and there's been so many lovely comments as well on Instagram and Facebook too, so I really appreciate what you've done. Thank you. So on to some sewing. I've managed to squeeze a little bit of sewing in as well. We've been quite busy with family stuff, and one of our sons was in hospital actually last week, so it's put me back a little bit in terms of my own little hobbies and pleasures. So yeah, I'm back anyway, and I've managed to sew a Pussy Bow dress hack. So this is what I'm wearing. So this is the Sew Over It Pussy Bow Blouse hacked into a dress. So this comes, usually it finishes here. It's a perfect length blouse normally, and I made one of these back in March. I'll show you the version in a second. And what I did was I've made a few alterations with this, so I'll go through them. So firstly, there is a centre seam on the Pussy Bow blouse. I'll pop an image of the picture on the front so that you can see how it should look. So I couldn't quite work out why that's needed, so I'm always looking for shortcuts, and because I'm using a print that's got quite a big floral design, I didn't want anything to interrupt it right down the centre, so I got rid of the centre seam. But if you do that, you need to remember that there'll be an extra 3 centimetres of fabric here which you need to address on the pattern, so it's not as easy as it may sound. So you need to kind of redraw the front so that you remove that 3 centimetres of seam allowance, which would be 1.5 on either side. If you don't do that, then you end up doing what I did the first time round, which is it widens the whole thing and the shoulders get too baggy here. So it really is important to address that on the front. The back is absolutely the same, so all I did was extend it quite a long way actually. I added on more than I needed because I wasn't sure about the length. So this I'm wearing with shiny leggings, so I've made it quite short. I did actually start with it below the knee, which it wouldn't look right I think on this type of thing because it's super long sleeved. I've added some extra inches to the sleeves as well, because I've got long arms, being so tall, and also I omitted the little button here and the rouleau loop. It's just a step that I didn't want to do. I wanted to make it as quick a make as possible. So I'm lucky enough that my hands can fit through without the extra gap. Just to make sure it really did fit, I lessened the seam allowance on the cuff. So I kept the cuffs there, but I joined them together with a tiny seam allowance, and then I just eased the fabric in around the cuff. So you'll have a few little gathers, as you're supposed to anyway. But that really works for me. It works on the other version too. So I'm quite happy about that. So yeah, also on the pattern itself, you're supposed to hand stitch this bow to the actual top, and I didn't want to do that this time because I'm quite lazy, so I stitched it by machine. Now I can get away with it on this fabric because it's a busy print, and I used a black cotton which blended in quite nicely to sew it with, but you've got to be really careful. It's like sewing a great big bias binding, so the best thing would be to hand tack it, but that kind of gets rid of the point of machine sewing it, I think, if you've got to spend so long hand tacking it first. So I pinned it very carefully and I pressed it just to make sure that when you sew it through that side, it catches on the underneath bit in the right place. And also on the actual V, I'll put a picture of this so you can see close up. That you have to be really accurate on this pattern in getting the tie right to meet at the actual V. If you've got the instructions, you'll know what I mean. So I wanted to remove any room for error here. So I've got a couple of ready-to-wear versions of a Pussy Bow top, and I noticed that they put a little bit of bias binding just over that V. So I did that too. It is another little step, but I liked the fact that I could then have this finish wherever I wanted to, and it wouldn't matter. And that worked out perfect for me, and it did finish it off nicely. I think that gives it a little bit of a nice touch. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. The other two adjustments that I also did were I put a couple of darts down the back to bring it in, because sometimes when you're sewing a blouse pattern, it's a blouse, it's meant to be, you know, loose, but I wanted something a little bit more fitted for this dress, so I added two great big French darts down the back. You just need to make sure and measure them that they're the same distance apart and the same distance from the side seams, and that just helped give a little shaping to the back, because there aren't any bust darts in this, I don't think. If there were, I've not put any in. Again, just because I didn't want to put them interrupt the pattern. So yeah, it's not always the most simple of things when you do a hack. Sometimes it works really quick, like the Ogden cami dress. That was a quick hack into a dress. But this one needed a little bit more thought. So yeah, just bear in mind if you want to do that yourself. From an existing blouse pattern, you can. It's pretty simple, but it does just take a little bit of planning through. This is actually made from the Zinnia Viscose in my shop, which I don't have any more of actually, sadly, and my suppliers run out too. But I do have a couple of other fabrics that this would work really well in. So this is the Lucky Feather Viscose, which I think is gorgeous. I'll show you that close up there. Or if you really like a winter floral, this exotic Pansy Viscose is beautiful. So I'm quite happy with those. This one would look absolutely stunning. There's some really lovely makes in this fabric that customers have made online, so if you want to have a look at those, I'll pop a few links below. So yeah, really happy with this. If you really dead set on finding this fabric, I know one of my fellow YouTubers, Nikki from Sewalicious, I think she's still got some of this in stock in her shop. So go and find her shop online, Sewalicious. I'll pop a link below. So this is the original version that I made back in March. And as you can see here on the actual bow, I don't know if I've done this wrong or if it's just not perfect, but it kind of, you've got to get that tie to finish exactly at the point of the V, and I'm not happy with the fact that there's no, you know, there's no slack really to get that wrong. So I think it's much easier if you do leave a little bit of a space. So yeah, it's really nice. I bought this fabric off eBay ages ago. I wished I could get this for the shop actually, but nobody has any anymore. So yeah, really loud print. This is a bubble crepe, so it's more of a textured crepe, which is a bit scary actually, because the first time you iron it, it goes even more bubbly. It kind of, you think you might have burnt it, but you haven't. It's just how it goes when it's first ironed. But yeah, beautiful. You know, I like my loud prints. So yeah, this worked really well for this top, and because it's navy, it looks brilliant with jeans. So it just goes to show that one pattern you can do so many different things with. I've also cut out some beautiful leopard print fabric in this to make another one of these, which I will do, but I've just not had a minute with being busy with the kids and the business. So yeah, it's definitely a very me winter outfit. And Viscose, despite being so light, it's been quite warm to wear this today. It's really freezing outside, and just having that extra long length on the arm is really helpful. So surprisingly cozy, even though it's such a light fabric. So yeah, recommend it. Have a go. So what am I going to make next? Well, I've got a couple of things in mind. So I was kind of inspired more by the fabric than a pattern, really, which I'm going to tend to do recently. But I've got this amazing sweatshirt fabric in, and it's so cozy. It's a cotton sweatshirt fabric with a little bit of stretching, and it's got the most beautiful back, so it's super cozy and smooth. And this is the Superstar dark grey version, and it also comes in the Superstar light grey version with pink stars, which I think is gorgeous. And I've seen loads of Linden sweatshirts made up recently because of the weather here, and it's such a popular pattern, and I'm yet to join the Linden party, so I'm hoping to have a go at that. Or I did notice there is a similar sweatshirt pattern to the Linden in last month's magazine, that magazine I was in. Talk about getting your money's worth. There's a version here, look, and this is actually the same, or it's a similar fabric. This one's got the larger stars on, but my version's with the smaller print. So I might be tempted to save a bit of money and have a go at that. I've printed out that pattern. It's a download, and the instructions are actually in the magazine. So that's a good frugal way of having a Linden-esque top. So I'll have a think about that. Also, it occurred to me yesterday, I've got this amazing navy velouring. So this is velour, which is a drapey fabric, and it behaves a little bit like a ponteroma. So if you look at the back, it's quite silky, quite smooth. It's not going to feel too polyestery next to the skin, if you know what I mean. It obviously is polyester, but I liked how silky that felt. Feels more like a running leggings or dance tights kind of fabric. And this is a navy. I've also got it in the black. Now, I was thinking about some loungewear. So especially, I work up here, it's in the loft, it's quite cold in winter, and it helps to be quite snug but comfortable. I think we all like that, don't we? So I've got a leggings pattern, which I've not tried yet, and this is Simplicity 8212. And what I like about this is there's no elastic in the waistband, which I never like. It's one of those kind of yoga band, well, it's not a fold over yoga band, but if you know what I mean, it's a thicker waistband, just made out of the actual fabric itself. And I think they would make a wicked pair of leggings. So that's a good plan if I get round to that. And with it, I'll need a top. So I could go down the Agnes route, but I'm not sure how stretchy. Yeah, that would work as an Agnes. Or one of the patterns I got free with the magazine, I think this was Love Sewing again, is this dress. Now, I've made this dress before. I think I talked about this on one of my earlier videos about easy patterns to sew. So if you want a really simple pattern where you've got a crazy loud fabric like that and you don't need any detail in the actual construction, this is a really good idea. So I could either make a dress out of that, and that would be perfect as a Christmas party dress, something a bit different. If you can imagine, everyone turns up in the little black dresses and the little red dresses to works parties. Imagine if you turned up in a floral velour dress. No one is going to be wearing that, are they? Granted, it's not for everyone, I know, but I'd love it, I'd do it. So I might convert the top of one of those dresses into a top to wear with those leggings. Or I might just stick to the tried and tested Agnes that I know fits me. So I'm going to do that. So I'll look crazy floral next time you see me. If it works out, I'm sure it will. But I think they'll make a great pair of leggings as well. I just need to decide whether or not to put ribbing with it. I've not quite worked that one out yet. I'd rather not, because I'd rather just use the fabric that I've got instead of getting more and more stuff in. So I think I'll just do that and use the self binding, or fold over the actual neckline themselves. I can't remember how I did this. For my other version of this, I made a quilted ponte with a leatherette bias binding, which looked really cool. I'm not sure how it's supposed to be. I can't remember if you actually bind it or just hem it, so I'll have a look at that. You could do either, obviously. But for that case, I think it just needs its own self-binding. Tools for binding, by the way, when I make bias binding, I use a bias binding tool to actually make the binding itself. I'll pop a link to where I get mine below. And also, when I actually sew it, I use, I'll show you, this is a bias binding, it's not a foot really, it's a plate that goes onto your sewing machine. Now, as you know, I have a industrial sewing machine, so it screws on with 2 screws into the actual plate itself, and then you feed the bias binding through there and it folds it for you and catches your fabric in one go, instead of unfolding it and stitching it and then folding it on the other side. And these are absolutely brilliant if you do a lot of bias binding sewing. So maybe if you've sewn quilts or the edges of lots of things, you'd already be familiar with those, but they're really handy. And they're not so good on a V, so I didn't use it for this because it's harder to pivot round. You're better off doing it by the usual way for corners and things like that. But for straight sewing or round sewing, round a hem or a cuff, they're brilliant. So yeah, that's it for me for this week. So I'm really looking forward to getting some more time to sew next month. So I'll pop back, hopefully in a cloud of navy velour floral, and you can have a good laugh at me then. Anyway, thanks for popping by, and thank you for all your support and your great comments. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.